If you are interested in creating income through freelance contract work, securing those types of projects, assignments, or retainer type scenarios, this video is for you. My name is Amy Palmer. I am your Gen X big sister, and we talk about all things pretirement here. Pretirement is the last 10 to 15 years-ish before retirement kicks in. And we've been talking about all the ways to live a joyful life, have purpose and joy and connection and freedom and flexibility and all the things, but you still need to generate an income because you're not quite ready for retirement. You still need to have that money coming in, right? So this is something that has worked for me, but it has been a lot of trial and error. So I thought I would share with you some of my trials and some of my errors and some of my successes in how this has played out for me. I've come to the conclusion on the backside of this, I've come to the conclusion that having a couple of corporate contracts, long-term, more longer-term retainer type scenarios is the healthiest for me. It works best for me because it provides that financial predictability, some stability, and still allows a lot of time and freedom for experimentation, creativity, and to really just try different things that interest me or catch my eye in the rest of my business. All right, so how did I go about making that happen? It took a while. First thing that I did was assess my work history and my skill set. And going all the way back, going all the way back to the beginning. And as a Gen Xer, you and I both know we've been freaking working since we were like 9 years old, and in some cases younger. So we have a really long work history behind us. And that also means we have acquired a lot of skills, and a lot of skills that can be utilized individually or in little packets, in little clusters. But it doesn't have to be like all in, and it doesn't mean that what we ended our career with, or ended our career, doesn't mean that our most recent work experience is the only thing that we can market and is the only thing that we can pull from. So I'll share some of my personal. So when I look at assessing my work history, ask yourself, what were you known for in that role? What did other people see as your strengths in that role? And that will help you to figure out which things you are best skilled at. So for me, I was fortunate that I went across multiple industries. I covered, education, food service, health and wellness, lots of service-based businesses. So, there's a wide scope of industry, but then skill set within that is very important. My background was in sales and operations and project management and sales management, turning businesses around, maximizing revenue, increasing revenue, growing businesses so that they could get sold, turning around businesses that were struggling, public speaking, presentation, training people live, training people one-on-one, curriculum design, putting trainings together, facilitating meetings, putting together meaningful meetings, expansion of businesses, like opening up new locations, expertise in social media and how to utilize it and how to engage with it to expand businesses, community outreach, how to get boots on the ground, grassroots marketing, got a lot of experience in that. Event planning, project management. Did I say that? So it covered lots of different areas, even though I may not have done all of that in one job. I did all of that in lots of different jobs, and I have track records and achievements in all of those areas. And I would suggest that for you, no matter what your career has been so far, that there is a lot there. If you really dial it back, go revisit the original job descriptions if you have to take a look at what are the competencies that you had, and think about what other people like bragged on about you. And those are the things that you can utilize to showcase and to secure some contracts. So I did that first. I like looked at all my different skill sets. And to be honest, I didn't really know which ones I would pull from and which ones I would utilize. I did, I I kind of wanted to stick to stuff that I enjoyed, but I wasn't necessarily married to that idea, meaning I just knew that I wanted a contract or an assignment or a project to bring in some money to alleviate any financial insecurity that I might have so I could free up my creativity for the rest of my business. So this contract was funding my business. And so the top priority was what's going to bring me the money. And I didn't know which path. Like it's not like I decided I was going to do one thing and I just went out there and marketed it, which a lot of people would recommend that you do. Create your niche and then market your niche. I made it people focused and needs focused first. So the other benefit to being a Gen X woman with a long professional history and a long track record, another benefit to that is the fact that I have a lot of strong connections within my network and a lot of people who I respect and who respected me. Luckily, through the course of my career, there are very few bridges that I burned. I mean, there was a couple instances where that's probably the case, but in most cases, I had pretty strong ties and connections with people who reported to me, people who were peers, and people that I reported to. I had some pretty healthy relationships there. So my next step was basically to go on a dog and pony roadshow virtually within my network. I went back 20, 30 years plus into my LinkedIn, into my experience. I contacted a CEO. He was the CEO of a company that I worked for 25 years ago. He's now like board of directors for multiple companies, like he's in a different direction. But I reached out to him to have a conversation. And that's just one example. Every single person who I had some sort of a positive professional relationship with, I reached out to. And from the standpoint of, I let them know that I was looking for project work and contract opportunities. And I generally put like a general within sales, operations, and leadership development. And I would love to hear what's going on for them currently in their company and find out like what their issues are and if there's possibly anything that I could do to help them, if there could be any mutual fit or a potential for any mutual fit there. And if I was a stranger off the street, it would be much harder to secure those conversations and to have those conversations. But since we had a previous connection and a previous relationship of some sort. I mean, some of these people that I reached out to are people that, used to report to me long ago, or they were people from completely other departments that maybe we collaborated on a project once, but I've always thought highly of them, and I think they thought highly of me. So it was like, it was worth a shot. And now they're in a different role. Obviously they've advanced in their career, so they're in a different place. So I shook the trees like crazy, and I just kept going back and going deeper. And I like created a long contact list of who I wanted to connect with. And I did a lot of research. I did a lot of research. LinkedIn became my website. So I followed some LinkedIn experts and optimized my LinkedIn profile page. And I changed it a few times in recent years. But I looked to see what are the recommendations and what are the guidelines for maximizing your LinkedIn. So I looked at how do I make the most use of that. I reached out to people that I knew, asking them to write recommendations for me, and I would help them by giving them, if you could talk about what I was like in this particular area, or this, I would give them a sense of what I was looking for. I'm looking for how I was as this. And they would give me a very specific written recommendation. So I was trying to flesh out my recommendations. I wanted to make sure that what I had on my page was could potentially attract people in. Was it sending the right message of what I bring to the table, what my value is? So I would absolutely recommend looking for a LinkedIn expert that talks about that. And once I did that, so I was fleshing out my LinkedIn, I was collecting recommendations. Collecting the recommendations actually happened in conjunction with, I would love to catch up and chat and see what's going on in your world too. So it also opened the door there. And from there, I was on a mission to have as many virtual meetings as I possibly can. Set a really high bar, like I want to have 10, 20 virtual one-on-one catch-ups meetings, and it could be 20 to 30 minutes was, like 20 minutes if they were somebody that it was going to be really hard to find time on their calendar, 30 minutes if there was a little bit more room there, but trying to schedule 10 to 20 of those every single week and really connecting with as many people as possible. And of course, since I didn't 100% know exactly what I was looking, I tell you what, I ended up kind of presenting what I was looking for slightly different depending on who I was talking with. So I would look into their company. I would look at like what kind of company they were with. I would try to get a sense of any challenges that they might currently be facing, by looking at posts and social media posts and articles and stuff like that. And I would kind of package, I had this buffet of skills, right? I would package them up based on what I thought that person might respond to, at least to get the conversation going. I didn't want to I also didn't want to lead down a path that didn't work or that might not have been the best. So I would offer up, what I was, what kind of assignments I was doing. And in most cases, actually in all cases, when I would talk about that, I would have a real life example of me doing that thing. So I would be prepared with those real life examples of how that would work. So I'd have a conversation with my contact. I'd find out what was going on in their company, and I would talk about what I might or might not be able to do with them, for them, and together. So I did a lot of that. And oftentimes, people want to help, and we want to help each other, especially if it's someone that you have helped, at some point, they definitely want to return the favor. So it's keeping focused on what can you do for that other person. So in some cases for me, it was, can I give them an introduction to somebody else? Like, is there somebody in my network that they would benefit from knowing? Since I was in the podcasting world now, could I help them with that a little bit? Is that something that they're interested in learning, or perhaps being interviewed on my podcast if it's in alignment with the theme, or if I know of somebody else that would be a good connection. So really thinking about what can I bring to the table and what can I do to serve them. So I was like, I would meet up with as many people as I possibly can. And I did that for a few months of lots and lots and lots of meetups and connection. And oftentimes they would have ideas for me. They would have suggestions. They would have the names of people that I should connect with, and they would foster some introductions that way. And it would lead me to another conversation and getting to know, somebody else as well. And so then what started to happen is I started to get opportunities that would come in my direction. So as a result of like the first opportunity that I got was within curriculum design, but it also utilized sort of my sales training and sales background as well, because it was curriculum design around sales training, and it was for a sales training company that I had connected with in the past. I had hired them for a previous company, and I had been a very devoted and loyal follower of them for a very long time. And I knew a couple different people within the company. I knew the CEO, and then I knew like her right-hand person. And so the first opportunity was around doing some projects along those lines. And in fact, one of their clients was my former employer, was one of my former employers. So I was actually able to help with projects that they were doing for them. And it was an advantage because what I brought to the table was a lot of the knowledge of background, history, whatever. So that opportunity came up, and I really, really enjoyed it. I realized I enjoy creating content. I enjoy creating curriculum, and I enjoy figuring out the best way to help somebody learn and to help somebody really up level their skills. And I had a variety of projects from that company. So that was one that came in my direction. And the next thing, what happened next? The next was around sales. So this sales opportunity that came to me, how did that? Okay, so this came a contact that I had, and this was a contact that I had the last time I had a company. So this was 15-ish years ago, where I had my sales training, coaching, and consulting business. There was a coach mentor that I had worked with that was my coach. And I hired her, did some of her programs. And then also when I went back to corporate, I hired her to come in as a public speaker. So we kind of had an ongoing relationship over years. And she initiated an introduction and connected me with someone who was looking for people who could do sales conversations, who could have actual sales conversations for her clients. And her clients were different types of coaching businesses. And so what I brought to the table is I had a coaching business in the past. I have sales background, I have sales training background, etc. But this was around actually conducting the sales conversation and the enrollment conversations with the potential prospects for this coaching company. And I really enjoyed that too, because the coaching company that I was representing, their program that they offered was freaking phenomenal. Like it was a little miniature master class, like master degree, MBA type program. It taught high executive women how to how to leave their executive role and launch their own consulting business in their area of mastery and expertise. And what they taught, and she particularly, the woman who launched that business, it was solid stuff. And by this time, I've had a lot of experience with different coaching businesses and companies and different people teaching their models and teaching their ways to do things and, how to become an entrepreneur and all this kind of stuff. This program that she designed was heads and shoulders far above any other that I had seen on how to do that. So it was a really top-notch program. And I enjoyed the women that I was speaking with and the women who wanted to potentially join this coaching program. So I believed in what I was doing. And it was a high ticket, it was a high investment program, but I absolutely believed that it was worth the investment. And it was a commission-based scenario where I would get a percentage of every enrollment that happened. And so it seemed like a great way for me to utilize my sales skills, my consultative sales skills. I have a lot of experience in that regard. So I did that for quite a while. And what turned out, there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff that complicated it, that was at no fault of the coaching company, no fault of myself. But so there was a point where I couldn't do it anymore. I did it for several months. I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, something like that. But one of the things that I learned during that time, yes, I was good at it. Yes, I could make some money doing it. What I didn't like was filling up my calendar. It was an appointment-based situation. And obviously, with something like this, the more appointments you have, the more potential you have to bring in the income, like to really to maximize a sales consulting role like that, you need to be willing to fill up your calendar. And I did it because I wanted to earn the money and I wanted to flex that muscle, but I didn't like the filled up calendar piece. So that was an important piece that told me, all right, I need something that requires as little like appointment space on my calendar so I can use the time. Like I want to be able to work, build, create, and deliver, but I don't necessarily want to be on camera or be on the phone or be at a certain place or time. I didn't want my day filled up with that. So that was good information to know as I was figuring this out. Now, for some people, it's an amazing route to take. And obviously, I got to meet a lot of really amazing people in that assignment and another similar assignment like that, where other women who, they loved it. They would go in, they would do 6 to 8 consultations a day. They were making really, really great money, and they still had a lot of like freedom and to create their own schedules and that sort of thing. So it is a great answer for a lot of people. It just, for me, it taught me, okay, so that's not necessarily the direction that I want to go. So that's good to know. And I also, one of the other sort of, the other things that I tried was I looked for fractional type assignments, and I could do, and the fractional world has really exploded in the last couple of years, I think, especially since the pandemic. But fractional, if you don't know it, you are providing a high level, executive level service to a company, but you're not full time, and you're possibly interim, uh, for a short amount of time, and it's a part-time thing, and you tend to have like a handful of different fractional clients. And there were a lot of different directions I could go with that. I could be a fractional COO. I have COO background, so I could offer that. And what it is it's for, like, let's say that there's a business, an up and coming business, and they can't quite afford a fully stocked C-suite yet, but they need some of that level of experience and expertise. So that's where fractionals come in. They'll have like a full-time CEO and maybe a full-time CFO, or maybe a fractional CFO, and they fill in the rest with fractional. And really, you're still providing a top-notch, valuable service to that company. So I marketed that as well. because it was really in line with a lot of my background. So I could be a fractional COO, I could be a fractional CEO, depending on the business. I could be a fractional CSO, Chief Sales Officer. So I started to really explore the fractional world. And what I realized is, again, it didn't necessarily, I didn't get excited about it. It didn't, even though like some of these other things that may or may not have worked out, I'm, I was, I was still relatively excited about, felt jazzed about it, felt some purpose about it. Doing the fractional work, I felt like, ooh, here I go. I'm going to like, how am I going to resist going all in? Like it's going to be hard to put in that level of commitment and availability and accessibility in the way that the situation requires. It just felt out of alignment. So ironically, I never really got any opportunities in that area, but it promoted a lot of conversation and got me thinking about what was possible. So from the fractional, like, so I was pursuing the fractional stuff. In the meanwhile, I was still getting other opportunities within curriculum design and creating online courses. I had a colleague of mine who I had lost touch with for years, and then we reconnected. And she had this whole new platform of micro learning that she wanted to transfer her current content into micro learning pieces using this new platform. And she was looking for somebody to help her put that all together. That excited the heck out of me. So I got to learn a new platform and I got to design this online course. And I had multiple things like that. My former boss, who moved on to a new company, came to me to help with some instructional design in different areas. And then I had smaller businesses coming to me wanting me to help them with their online content and their digital content because they were seeing what I was doing with Blueprint Breakers, the podcast, the one thing I was clear about doing. They saw how I promoted it online. They saw some of the assets that I was creating as a result of that. And some of the smaller businesses wanted some help in doing that for themselves. And I had somebody approach me to produce their podcast for their business because they had been following my podcast. They liked what I did and how I did it. And they wanted to know if I could do that for them. And so after a few years of trial and error, like I said, patterns started to emerge. And it was like the Venn diagram of all the stuff that I could do, that I was good at, and all the stuff that I like to do, and then all the stuff that people would pay me for. So there was that little piece in the middle of those three overlapping circles, that little piece in the middle that was becoming really, really clear. And that's when I launched the Blue Sky Creative. So my digital creative agency, where that's what I do. I do instructional design, curriculum development. I build online courses using multiple different platforms, including some of the latest state-of-the-art platforms to support learning. I create digital content. I produce podcasts for myself and for others. So I started to see that the opportunities that were coming my way all had commonalities. And my goal has been to have a retainer type situation from a couple of different companies at any given time. And you never know where it's coming from. One of my primary clients right now came from, I was on I went to an event with a bunch of friends, and this woman who I've met several times, and we've met in different circumstances. I don't know her. I did not know her that well. She did not know me that well, but we were like acquaintances and social connection, etc. And I always liked her. She liked me. We just were chatting at this event, and I shared with her some of what I was doing and some of what I was building. And she was like, wait a minute, you do curriculum design? Like, what about sales training? What about customer service training? And I said, yeah, I can do all that because I've got huge background that also supports that, not just the training, but I've got background in sales, background in customer service, background in call center, launching call centers, call center management. So just in that conversation, it led to ultimately having an amazing professional relationship and professional contract with that company as well. So all this to say, if you want to build a freelance contract business for yourself, be willing to experiment with it. I think that's what worked for me. Figure out what your buffet of skills is, what your skill set is, and figure out those three circles, like what you're good at, what you like to do, and what people will pay you for, and then what's the overlap in those three areas. Figure out what that is for you and freshen up your LinkedIn profile, and don't be afraid to dig deep into your past for connections. You know, even those people that you just casually knew back in the day, they've done a lot since you last saw them, just like you've done a lot since you last saw them. Don't be afraid to catch up and just have that conversation and to listen to what's going on for them with a focus on how can I serve you? Because how can I serve you? And they're coming to the conversation with how they can serve you. It ends up being a win-win scenario. Focus on those people, focus on the connections. That's what's going to do it. And I just feel just so lucky. Fortunate, whatever the word is. The fact that it all kind of came together with such clarity and with the Blue Sky Creative, you know, my digital creative agency, just it it leaves me open to continue to experiment within that realm and to be able to have conversations about what I'm doing to attract interesting work and be able to give me the financial stability and security that I need. So if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer. This is the first time that I've really covered this particular topic in this way, in this depth. So I'd love to get your feedback on what was helpful, what you would love to hear more about, because I can dig up resources and all that kind of thing. Would love to hear that. Let me know your thoughts. My name is Amy Palmer. I am your Gen X Big Sister. Don't forget to like and follow, subscribe to this channel. This is your Gen X Big Sister signing out.